Shakti, based on the screenplay written by Salim Khan and Javed Akhtar. This is a Pliskin audiobook presentation. Part 1. The Oath. The night over Bombay moved like a restless tide. From the heights of Malabar Hill down to the shanties by the railway tracks, the city hummed with the breath of 10 million souls, each carrying a secret, a hunger, a prayer. The air was thick with salt and diesel, the tang of the sea mingling with the smoke of cooking fires and the perfume of restless ambition. In the heart of that sleepless giant stood a tall building of cracked stone, its corridors echoing with footsteps and the faint creak of ceiling fans. Inside a small bare office on the top floor, a single light still burned. Deputy Commissioner of Police Ashwini Kumar sat behind a wooden desk, uniform pressed, every crease sharp enough to draw blood. His eyes were calm, yet behind that calm lay the weight of 1,000 nights like this one. To some, he was a legend of the force. To others, a cold machine of the law. To himself, he was simply a man who had made an oath long ago and had never learned how to break it. Before him lay an open file. Dinesh Gupta, arms, narcotics, and contraband. The ink on the papers was fresh, but the stench of corruption was old, older than the city's gutters. Gupta's name threaded through the underworld like oil through water. Impossible to clean, impossible to hide. Ashwini's pen moved with slow precision as he signed the arrest order. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere beyond the docks. A constable appeared hesitantly at the door. "Sir." Madam called twice. She said dinner's getting cold. Ashwini's voice did not rise. "Tell her I'll be home soon." When the constable left, the officer's gaze fell upon a small silver frame beside the files. A photograph of his wife Sheetal smiling in sunlight, and their young son Vijay, holding a wooden toy pistol as if he already understood bravery. The picture had faded a little around the edges. He touched it briefly, almost reverently, then turned off the lamp and stepped into the corridor. At home in Bandra, the flat was modest, 3 rooms, pale green walls, and the smell of soap and incense. The city outside never stopped, but inside, Sheetal kept time with her own rhythm. The clink of plates, the rustle of laundry, the faint hum of a Lata Mangeshkar song from the radio. 8-year-old Vijay sat at the dining table, a pencil in one hand, a comic book hidden beneath his homework. "Mommy, Papa kab aayenge?" he asked, impatience turning in his voice. "Bas, thodi der main beta," she said, smiling, though she glanced anxiously at the clock. He had work. "He always has work," Vijay murmured. "Other boys' fathers come home before dinner." Sheetal knelt beside him, tucking his hair behind his ear. "Your father's work keeps the city safe. One day, you'll be proud of that." The key turned in the lock. Boots clicked on the floor. ACP Kumar reporting home. Came a dry, familiar voice. "Papa, The boy's sulk vanished. He ran across the room and threw his arms around the man's waist. Ashwini smiled, just barely. Are, look at this uniform. Ready for parade already. I got 18 out of 20 in dictation, Vijay said proudly. Where did the other 2 marks go? Teacher said I spelled justice wrong. Ashwini's eyes softened. Then we'll have to fix that, Sheetal's laughter filled the room for a moment, a sound that made the small flat feel larger than any mansion in the city. They ate simple food that night. Dal, rice, sabzi. The ceiling fan groaned above them like an old friend. Between mouthfuls, Vijay said, Papa, next week in the school play, I'm the police inspector. You'll come, na? Ashwini looked up from his plate. Of course. Inspector Vijay Kumar, I wouldn't miss it for the world. But Sheetal's eyes caught his, a silent reminder of promises past. When the boy was asleep, she found her husband by the window, staring at the skyline. You could come home early sometimes, she said softly. He needs you. Ashwini didn't turn. The law doesn't keep office hours. The law doesn't love you either, she replied. He looked at her then, weary, affectionate, stubborn. If I start choosing between my duty and my heart, I'll fail both. She sighed, walked to him, and rested her head on his shoulder. Outside, Bombay glimmered, indifferent, eternal. Weeks passed. The heat thickened, and so did the rumors about Dinesh Gupta's next consignment. One Sunday night, clouds gathered low and bruised over the sea. Ashwini stood near the Retold docks, the smell of salt and tar thick in his nostrils. Police jeeps waited in the shadows. Their headlights were dimmed. He gave a quiet order. Move. The raid exploded into motion, shouts, boots pounding on wood, the crack of gunfire. Inside the warehouse, smugglers scattered like rats. Ashwini moved through the chaos with icy focus, his revolver steady, his voice cutting through the noise. By dawn, Gupta was in handcuffs, bleeding from a scraped cheek but still smiling. You think you've won, Saab, he sneered. You don't know who you're playing with. Ashwini's tone was iron. I don't play. I enforce. The next morning's newspapers carried his picture on the front page. DCP Kumar busts major smuggling ring. Vijay cut out the photo and kept it folded inside his school book. My papa's the bravest police officer in Bombay, he told his friends. Sheetal watched her husband read the same paper over breakfast, pride and fear battling in her eyes. She said nothing, only placed another roti on his plate. Then came the evening that would change them all. The April sun had sunk into a haze of orange dust. The annual fair had opened at Mahim, his Ferris wheel turning slowly above the rooftops. The Kumar family went together for the first time in months. Vijay clutched a paper flag in one hand and his mother's fingers in the other. The smell of roasted peanuts and cheap perfume filled the air. Can I have balloons? He asked. After the giant wheel, Sheetal said, smiling. First, promise you won't run off. Ashwini, in plain clothes for once, watched his son with a rare softness. For a few minutes, the great man of duty looked only like a husband and father, human, content, unsuspecting. Near the toy stall, Sheetal turned to pay the vendor. When she looked back, the world had shifted. A van stood idling by the exit. 3 men moved through the crowd with the confidence of wolves. One stooped, another pressed a cloth to a small face, and in the time it takes to blink, the child was gone. "Vijay!" she screamed. "Vijay!" The music of the merry-go-round faltered. People turned, someone shouted directions, but the van was already swallowed by traffic and dust. When Ashwini reached her, she was shaking, eyes wild. "They took him. Our son, they took him." He held her shoulders, steadying her as if she were evidence he must examine. Then he signaled to the constables nearby, voice clipped, "Check every exit road. Now." But by nightfall, there was no trace of the boy. At midnight, the telephone on Ashwini's desk rang. The voice on the other end was calm, almost courteous. "DCP Kumar, we have your son. If you want him alive, release Dinesh Gupta before sunrise." Ashwini's knuckles whitened on the receiver. "You know I cannot do that." "Then perhaps," the voice said, "you should start planning a funeral." The line went dead. He sat for a long time in the silence that followed, staring at the wall. Outside, the rain began to fall, slow, deliberate, as if the heavens themselves were weighing their own conscience. Sheetal burst into the office soon after, her sari soaked from the downpour. "Ashwini, they called again?" "Yes." "Then release him. Release that man, please. He's just a criminal. Vijay is our child." Ashwini's face was pale, his eyes dark with something more terrible than fear, conviction. "If I release a murderer today, how many children will die tomorrow? If I break the law once, it will never stand again." Her voice cracked. "And if you keep it, what will stand in its place? Our grief?" He looked at her helplessly. "I swore an oath." She stepped back. "And I swore to be your wife, not your widow." Outside, sirens wailed. Somewhere the city trembled between crime and justice. And in that trembling, a father's heart began to fracture. Rain hammered the tin roofs through the night, washing the grime from the city, but none from Ashwini Kumar's conscience. He stood by the window of his office, watching lightning break over the harbor, each flash illuminating the framed motto above his desk: service, sacrifice, truth. Below, his officers moved like ghosts through puddled courtyards. Orders were whispered, jeeps readied, informers dispatched. The entire machinery of law turned at his command, yet inside him everything was still. When the telephone rang again, the voice that spoke was no longer calm. "Last chance, Saab. Release Gupta. Dawn is near." Ashwini's answer came slowly, evenly. "If you harm the boy, there will be no place on this earth where you can hide." A laugh, dry as gravel. "Hide? We don't hide from men like you. You hide behind your uniform." The line went dead. Hours crawled. At 3:30 a.m., Inspector Malik entered, rain dripping from his cap. Sir, tip from an informer. Movement near the old textile godowns at Road. Ashwini's eyes lifted. How certain. Certain enough to gamble our lives. Then we gamble, Ashwini said. No noise, no mercy. Within minutes, a convoy of jeeps sliced through the storm. The sirens stayed silent. Only thunder announced their approach. The godown squatted by the railway tracks. Windows boarded, one lamp burning within. Ashwini stepped into the darkness first. The air smelt of rope and kerosene. He signaled, left, right, advance. Then came the voice, hoarse, desperate. Stay back, police. The boy dies if you come. For an instant, the world narrowed to a single beam of light. Through it, he saw a small figure. His son, gagged, terrified, and the rough arm that held him. Let him go, Ashwini said, his tone stripped of rank, of reason, of everything except command. Drop your gun, the kidnapper shouted. Time hesitated. Rain drummed on the roof. A train shrieked somewhere in the distance, and the law waited to see what its most faithful servant would do. Ashwini's revolver steadied. His finger tightened. One shot. The kidnapper fell. The echo rolled through the building like thunder leaving the sky. Vijay crumpled beside the man, sobbing, his hands bound. Ashwini reached him, tore away the ropes, pulled the boy against his chest. It's over, beta, it's over. But the child's body remained stiff, his voice small and broken. You didn't come when they called Papa. Ashwini froze, the revolver still warm in his hand. He wanted to say I had to obey the law, but the words felt hollow even inside his mind. He held his son tighter, whispering, You're safe now. The boy did not answer. Morning broke grey and empty. News spread across Bombay like wind through dust. Kidnappers killed. DCP Kumar rescues own son. Photographers crowded the police station gates. Ministers called with congratulations. Reporters praised the officer who would not bend. Inside, the hero of the hour sat alone, staring at the damp cuffs of his shirt. He felt no victory, only the strange stillness that comes after a wound too deep to bleed. When he returned home, Sheetal ran to them. She dropped to her knees, clutching Vijay's face in both hands, weeping. Did they hurt you, beta? He shook his head. Then she turned to her husband. He's safe, she whispered, half thankful, half accusing. Ashwini nodded once. Yes. That night, while the boy slept, she faced him across the dimly lit room. Why? She asked. Because if I let one criminal go free, the law dies. And if your son had died instead? He looked at her, a man carved from duty, helpless before the language of grief. Then the law would still have lived. She stared at him as if seeing a stranger. And what of us, Ashwini? Are we to live inside a coffin built from your oath? He had no answer. The rain had stopped outside, but its echo remained in the house, soft and endless. Days passed. Vijay recovered, but something unseen had changed. The laughter that once filled the small flat vanished, replaced by a silence that neither toys nor stories could mend. At dinner, Sheetal tried to bridge the gap. Vijay, eat your roti. Your father brought fresh mangoes. The boy obeyed, wordless. Ashwini forced a smile. So, Inspector Vijay Kumar, ready for your school play? He shrugged. Teacher said I can't act anymore. I missed practice. You'll try again next year. Vijay looked up, eyes dark and older than they should be. Will you come next year, Papa? The question lingered like smoke. Sheetal lowered her gaze. Ashwini's fork paused midair. I will, he said quietly. But even he did not believe it. In the weeks that followed, he threw himself deeper into work. Raids, meetings, endless files. The more he served the law, the less he seemed to belong to his own home. Sheetal watched him leave each morning, his boots echoing down the corridor, and wondered what sort of god demanded such sacrifices. Vijay stopped waiting by the window. He stopped asking when his father would return. He played alone, building and breaking small police stations out of matchboxes, muttering to himself that rules never saved anyone. One evening, when the city was golden with sunset, Ashwini came home early, for once. He found his son by the balcony, staring down at the street. Beta, he said softly, come sit with me. The boy turned wary. I know you're angry, Ashwini continued, but one day you'll understand. The law, it protects everyone, even us. Vijay's lips trembled, even when it hurts us. Ashwini nodded slowly. Especially then. Vijay looked away. Then I don't want it. He walked past his father into the small bedroom, closing the door behind him. That night, as the city lights flickered beyond the window, Ashwini found Sheetal folding Vijay's school uniform. He needs you, she said. I'm trying. No, she whispered. You're proving. That's not the same. He sat down heavily, hands clasped. What would you have me do? Apologize for doing what was right. Right? She echoed. A choice that breaks a child's heart can never be wholly right. She placed the uniform aside and turned away, her voice almost a whisper. You saved him, Ashwini. But you lost him. The monsoon withdrew, leaving the city bright and brittle. On a clear morning, Vijay walked to school alone. Near the corner of the lane ran a gutter, its water sluggish with last night's rain. In his hand, he held a small plastic badge, a toy police emblem his father had given him years ago. He studied it for a moment, its edges worn smooth by play. Then, without hesitation, he dropped it into the water. The current caught it, spun it once, and carried it away. He watched it disappear beneath the rubbish and oil, a faint glimmer swallowed by shadow. Something inside him closed with it, quietly, permanently. Back in the police headquarters, Ashwini Kumar stood before a row of officers, receiving yet another medal for bravery. The commissioner's speech thundered across the hall. a man who upheld the law above all else, a symbol of integrity for every officer of the Indian Police Service. Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed. Ashwini saluted, expression unreadable. Outside, beyond the banners and garlands, the sound of schoolchildren playing drifted faintly from a nearby ground. Among their shouts and laughter, one voice was missing, the only one he longed to hear. He removed his cap, wiped a trace of sweat from his temple, and for a moment his eyes closed. In the darkness behind them, he saw a boy's face, the look of betrayal frozen between fear and love. When he opened them again, he was once more the law incarnate, straight-backed, composed, untouchable. But somewhere far away, in a lane filled with puddles and dreams, a discarded toy badge floated into the sea, carrying with it the last piece of a childhood and the first seed of a man who would one day stand against his own father. Part 2. The Wound. Years thinned the sharpness of the kidnapping into a dull ache. But aches are patient. They do not leave, they settle. Bombay changed its skin. The mills coughed less smoke. The new high-rises watched the old chawls with cold glass eyes. And the price of silence rose faster than the price of grain. Somewhere in that sprawling city, a boy who had once believed in badges became a man who did not believe in much at all. Vijay Kumar grew tall and rangy, handsome in a dangerous way, the kind of face that could smile and not surrender anything. In his eyes lived the memory of a night when duty had outranked love. He learned to work with his hands and with his wits. He learned to speak softly to men who spoke only with knives. He tried honest jobs, loading and unloading cargo at the docks, running consignments of cloth, driving a taxi by night, and discovered that honesty kept you hungry in a city that fed on shortcuts. His father, meanwhile, moved from deputy commissioner to a higher desk with a heavier chair, the straightest man in an office of crooked shadows. Papers still marched across Ashwini Kumar's table. Medals still found their way to his chest. The photograph of Sheetal and the little boy still stood beside his blotter, fixed in the amber of a happier time. At home, the rooms had grown quieter. Sheetal's voice held gentleness but no longer lightness. Her smiles reserved for prayers. Vijay avoided the house whenever he could. He avoided the word Papa entirely. The turning came not as thunder but as a whisper at the docks. A crate went missing. A foreman said not to ask questions. A man with a slick mustache and a foreign watch stepped from a black ambassador and said, "You carry well, bhai. Good back, good brains. Work for people who pay on time." "Who are your people?" Vijay asked. The man smiled with his eyes. "Men who do not waste time with lectures. There are lines you cross without noticing." Vijay took one job, moving electronics from a ship to a godown outside Mazgaon. It paid more than a month of sweating on the pier. He took another, pharmaceuticals that did not come with prescriptions. He told himself he was only carrying, not doing. The city told him what it deals everyone in need. Boss, do this once. In the dim corners of a Kolaba bar where a band did not quite keep time, Vijay met a woman whose voice made the smoke pause midair. She sang old film songs, refusing to smile unless the song required it. Roma. She was neither fragile nor hardened. She was a dancer who had taught herself not to shiver when men looked too long. Vijay watched her the way a tired man watches the sea, as if it might wash something away. Your face says you don't belong here, she told him after the midnight set, wrapping her shawl tighter. And your voice says you should be somewhere better, he replied. Better than Bombay. She laughed softly. Are, and where is that? They became easy with one another. He walked her to taxis, learned she lived with an aunt, learned she disliked drunken applause. She learned he never spoke about his family, that his silence was not empty but guarded. He taught her how to make tea in a chipped kettle on the bar's tiny stove between sets. She taught him to breathe slower when anger rose in his throat. It was not a romance that announced itself. It arrived as evenings that lengthened without permission. Vijay's work deepened. The man with the foreign watch finally spoke the name of the power behind the cargoes, a name said with deference and a certain fear. J.K. Verma. Bombay had a few such men. Smooth voices, rough hands by proxy. J.K. wore his suits like armor and his goodwill like a knife sheathed beneath a handshake. He met Vijay in a room that smelled of leather and imported cigarettes. I've heard you lift without complaint and drive without questions, J.K. said. That is rare. I'm always loyal to the rare. Loyalty works both ways, Vijay said. Of course. J.K. smiled as if pleased by the audacity. A man like you deserves respect and protection. Protection's the city's most attractive lie. Vijay nodded and took the envelope, and with it a place at the edge of a circle he once would have despised. News traveled faster at home than sons. Sheetal noticed the newer shirt, the money folded too neatly, the way Vijay stood at the window as if listening for footsteps that did not belong to friends. One evening she reached for his wrist as he was leaving. Don't be late, beta. He tried to lift his hand gently. Her fingers tightened. Ma, I'm not a child. Then don't make a mother beg a man, she said. Her eyes, still beautiful, had grown older than her face. If there is something you need, ask me. Ask your father. At this he laughed, not cruelly but with a pain that could only mock itself. Ask him? For anything? He gives sermons, Ma, and expects them to fill the stomach. Your father has given his life to the law, and he will ask for mine next. Vijay said, softer now. He already took what he wanted. She did not let go of his wrist. Don't become the thing he fights, Vijay. Don't become the darkness because the light hurt your eyes. He kissed her hand and slipped away. The city welcomed him with the habits of men who stay awake late. Narrow lanes filled with murmurs, cigarettes dying slowly in ashtrays, promises sealed with 4 words. Apna aadmi hai na. He was valued for his nerve, for his instinct to step forward when others hesitated. A shipment of weapons arrived hidden beneath sacks of spices. He helped move it with a steady face and a steady hand, thinking only of the envelope that would pay rent for months. That night, Roma leaned against him on a beach too dark for lovers, and the shame he ought to have felt did not arrive. He only felt tired and grateful for the warmth of a shoulder that did not ask questions. But questions find their way home. Ashwini Kumar heard whispers that the underworld had grown efficient where it used to be lazy. The reports were not troubling for their details, but for their pattern. A pattern that suggested a mind at work. someone who was not merely lifting boxes but connecting routes. Ashwini read, circled names, underlined dates, and began to move his own pieces. He did not yet know that a familiar shadow had started to fall across his maps. The first crossing happened in a warehouse near Surrey. Police boots thudded on concrete. Torches cut through dust. Vijay, standing near a half-open crate, felt the warning ripple that runs through a room just before a raid. A sudden hush, a breath held by rafters. He and two men rushed for a side exit. A beam of light found them. "Stop! Police!" They ran through stacked crates into an alley that opened toward the sea. A jeep slewed across the mouth of the lane. Officers leapt down. One of the constables was slow to raise his lathi. Vijay pushed past him, not with a blow, but with a twist of the arm, not cruel, just urgent. He was almost clear when the voice halted him like a wall he could not see. "Vijay." He turned. The torch glare softened. The man at the mouth of the lane was tall, in plain clothes, his face scarred with sleepless years. Ashwini. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Somewhere a gull cried. Somewhere a train bell rang. The other men kept running. Father and son stared at each other across 6 feet and a decade. "Don't," Ashwini said, not loudly. Vijay smiled without mirth. "What is it this time, Saab?" "Law above all. Come with me. To your side. Or to your prison." "To the law," Ashwini said. And the words sounded less certain than they once had. Vijay's jaw tightened, but his voice remained even. "I came alone into this lane. Don't expect me to follow you out." He turned and was gone before the constables grasped what silence had permitted. That night, Ashwini returned home looking older than he had in the morning. Sheetal watched him wash his hands longer than necessary, as if water had learned a new duty. "You saw him?" she said. He nodded once. "You let him go." He did not answer. What answer exists for the moment a father fails at both his vows? After this, the city's rumor machine did not merely whisper, it gossiped loudly. It said J.K. Verma had acquired a lion with the eyes of a saint and the hunger of a thief. It said Vijay knew routes no inspector had drawn on paper. It said the police would crack down and that when they did, the first to bleed would be the ones who could not run as fast as their bosses. Roma began to fear the nights. "Vijay," she said, the name like a plea. "I sing for men who don't know my name, but they will never own it. You're giving your name to men who call you beta for fun. Leave this." He looked at her, at the courage in a woman who only had her voice to defend herself, and he felt a heaviness he would not show her. "What would we eat?" "I'll sing more, I'll teach children," she said. "We will go to Pune, to Nasik, anywhere. We will survive." "Survive is not the same as live," he said. "To live without peace is not living," she answered. He touched her cheek, gentle. "1 more month," he lied. Because men tell the truth only to those who can forgive it. The months did not care for promises. Ashwini's circle tightened. J.K.'s shipments grew bolder. The city was a chessboard across which both sides moved, but one side could not imagine surrender and the other could not spell it. Meetings between father and son happened rarely, always at the edge of danger. A night market, A festival crowd, a shadowed staircase. The words were always the same. "Come home," said the father. "Define home," said the son. The closest thing to tenderness came once on a footbridge over railway tracks at dusk. Trains roared beneath them. People shouldered past without seeing. Ashwini stood 2 steps below his son and said softly, "I have spent my life saying no to men like the ones you now obey. Do not ask me to learn yes at this age." Vijay's voice broke for the first time in years. "I asked you to say yes once, only once, when I was 8 years old." They stood in the train smoke. 2 men who could not step forward without stepping on each other's hearts. Sheetal's body absorbed the weather of their war. She grew thinner. The doctors spoke in nervous euphemisms. Rest, avoid stress, watch the blood pressure. But how does a wife rest when every siren could be the voice that ends one love to avenge another? She lit a small lamp before the household gods and told them, "If there is any balance in your books, use it now." It was Roma who brought her the most human comfort. She arrived one afternoon, sari simple, eyes honest. She touched Sheetal's feet and said, "Auntie, forgive me for coming uninvited. I am with Vijay." Sheetal studied her face, then smiled. A mother's smile which can read character in a heartbeat. "You have a clean voice," she said, as if that answered everything. "I keep telling him to leave this work." "Keep telling him," Sheetal said. "A mother's voice sometimes cannot reach where a beloved's can." They sat together, 2 women building a fragile alliance against a man's stubbornness and the world's greed. J.K. understood that his valuable asset had a conscience. He also understood how to occupy it. He called Vijay to his office and gestured toward a chair that cost more than most weddings. "This is not smuggling," he said, as if reading the young man's doubt. "It is logistics. The state taxes too much, the people pay too much, we adjust the difference. Everyone eats. The city stays alive." "And the guns?" Vijay asked quietly. J.K. spread his hands. "Guns are the punctuation marks of this city's grammar. We never write the sentence. We only lend the full stop." Vijay said nothing. J.K.'s smile deepened. "You worry about the law. Good. A man who fears the law is easier to save than a man who fears nothing. Remember, beta, if the law were perfect, men like your father would not have to be saints to obey it." It was the closest anyone had come to naming the open wound. The blow that followed did not come from a raid, but from an ordinary morning. When grief chooses to appear because it sees an unlocked door. Sheetal collapsed at home, her hand gripping the back of a chair, the teacup shattering as it fell. By the time the ambulance arrived, the city had added another statistic to its account: cardiac failure. The doctor's voice trembled in the way professionals hate. We tried, Kumasab." At the hospital, Ashwini stood very straight as if posture could hold back death. Vijay arrived breathless, eyes wild, hair wet with sweat. For a moment, all the alleys between them vanished. He took his mother's hand, cool now, obedient only to silence, and whispered, "Ma, I am here." He looked up at his father, and in his eyes there was a child pleading for someone to say this was a mistake the world would soon correct. Ashwini touched his son's shoulder with a hand that had steadied so many men in uniform and never shaken. She was the bridge. he said, not to blame, but as if reciting a truth the earth itself had engraved. We burned it by living. They lit the pyre. Flames carry no ideology. They do their work and leave. Roma stood apart, sari white, face bare of color, her grief private. J.K. did not appear. Men like him do not attend funerals they have helped write. After, the house felt too big, then too small, then like a museum where the exhibit is the absence of a woman's voice. Vijay walked into the kitchen and found the kettle, the way she had left it. He held it as if it could answer questions. Ashwini sat in the chair beside the telephone and watched the door she had walked through 1,000 times, as if repetition might bring her back one more. That night, father and son faced each other in a room that had lost its horizon. "This ends now," Ashwini said, his voice low but iron. "You will come with me. You will surrender. We will fight this in the courts. We will at least try to be men she would recognize." Vijay's reply emerged from a grief so deep it sounded like anger. "You want me to surrender to your law the day our home has died? You could not bend for a living child. You bend now for a dead wife." "I bend for neither," Ashwini said. "I stand. And I am asking you to stand with me. You are asking me to kneel. Before the law. Before you," Vijay said. And this time the ache could not hide behind argument. "You, always you." They fell silent. A clock somewhere in the building ticked with exemplary discipline. Outside, a dog barked once and reconsidered. Roma spoke from the doorway, her voice careful. "Vijay, come away. Not forever, just for a few days. Let the fire cool." He looked from her to his father. The oldest choice in the world stood before him. Two loves that could not share a roof. He picked up a small brass diya from the table and placed it on the floor between them, lighting it with a match. The tiny flame trembled. "This was hers," he said. "She kept it alive even when the wind came through the windows." Then he blew it out with a single steady breath. "I will not surrender," he said. "Not to your men, not to your courts, not to your God. Not now." He walked past his father into the hallway. Roma, tears shining but unshed, followed him. Ashwini remained, alone with the extinguished lamp and a photograph in which the smile of a woman and the laugh of a boy would never learn what the years had done to them. He did not weep. He stood and straightened his shoulders and reached for the phone. "Inspector Malik," he said when the line connected. "We proceed. No gifts, no warnings. If we find him, we bring him in." He replaced the receiver gently, as if noise might break something already gone. Outside, Bombay continued. Trains and cellars and prayers and bargains. Somewhere in a guarded room, J.K. Verma smiled at the problem that would make him grander if he solved it. How to keep a son from being reclaimed by a father who did not know how to yield. Somewhere on a narrow staircase, smelling of kerosene and hope, Roma rested her head against Vijay's shoulder and whispered a lullaby older than the city. The kind mothers sing to children and lovers sing to men who are learning to hate the world. And somewhere within the unlit spaces of the night, the wound, that first wound, the one made when a boy learned the price of an oath, opened wider, large enough now to shape destinies and graves.